What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the More Life Podcast. I am Bart Anderson, your host, and this week we have a very special guest, Sophie Taylor from the GTA. Sophie is a designer, award-winning designer, an agency owner, and an all-around fun person. Sophie, please say hello to everybody on the podcast.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you so much for having me.
We're gonna pretend like we didn't already do like all of that once before
Right.
and didn't have a whole bunch of technical difficulties. So it's okay. It's okay. We're gonna be fine. We've been having some
Fine.
Wi-Fi issues, and I don't know if it's her or if it's me, but it's gonna be okay. I know this is gonna be a fun episode. Sophie, you're a fun person. I love all of your
Thank you.
quips and thoughts on Facebook. It gives a real sense of who you are as a person, and not just like the design studio and all the great stuff you do there. But we really get to know who you are. But before we get started, I'm gonna let you speak, and I'm gonna let you explain in your own words. I like to ask people in your own words, how do you tell people what you do?
Yeah, I'm a branding graphic designer. I do luxury brand identity, packaging, stationery, print design, digital. I do some websites I don't code, but I build in WordPress, and I do Shopify sites. So yeah, I also do prints and patterns for products. I have a product line myself in my shop. So a bit of a Jill of all trades within design specifically, I guess. So
Yeah,
not a Jill of
and
all trades, because that's not what that means.
you've really made a niche for yourself in like the beauty space as well, and product design space and package design. All those things
Thank you.
kind of all play really well together. And a lot of the listeners I know will be very interested to know about like, how did this start? Like, design specifically is like product design. There's not that many people that know the ins and outs of the industry. So I'm always like, yeah, we're gonna break it down for people today. Be like, hey, how did the company start? Was this just like a hobby that turned into a business, or was this always the intention of it being a business? How did this all come together?
Good question. So when I was a kid, I always loved design before I even knew what design was. I always say, I'm sure my parents, to their chagrin, I was always picking up business cards and flyers, anywhere I went, just like, oh, this looks cool, and just bring them home. I'm sure they were constantly recycling stuff behind my back.
Oh yeah.
And just always loved posters and that kind of thing. So when I graduated from high school, when I was looking at colleges, I wanted to do graphic design and fashion, actually. But I realized that I'm terrible at sewing. I don't have the patience. So that's why I only did
Where
graphic
did you go?
design.
Did you go to Ryerson?
No, I was in California. So I was born here. I grew up in the States. So at the time I was in California, and I went to UC Davis for my undergrad. And then for my master's, I was in
Got
Toronto,
it.
and I went to Ryerson for that. Yeah. So in college, I
Got
started
it. Got it.
freelancing.
I know a lot of designers go to
And
Ryerson.
yes, yeah, exactly. So it was so I was doing my master's online, still from the Academy of Art in San Francisco. And then when I moved to Toronto, I realized I really didn't want to do a graphic design program virtually. So then I switched and did a fashion master's, but researching branding. So still tied in with my background. And yeah, so during my undergrad, I started designing for a couple departments on campus and freelancing through MySpace. I got my first clients through MySpace. So
Wow.
that's, yep. Back in like
That's crazy.
2004, I started. What'd you say? Sorry.
I said that's crazy. Getting design clients on MySpace.
Yeah. Yep, I posted the horrible things I was designing at the time. Don't look back 17 years at your work. Don't do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
a couple people liked it. So yeah, so that's how it all started. And so right from the beginning, I was designing with people who weren't. I was in Germany at the time, just for 6 months. But even though they were American, they weren't from California. I started working with people from different states, and that's how really the internet was what let me grow, where I wasn't just working locally with people.
So you were online from the very beginning. That's very unique. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know many designers who were like, "Oh, I was on like way back, way back," because that idea or that concept only came, at least I guess more with like social media, you would have
Yeah.
agencies who would have like showcase their work maybe on websites, but for an individual to be like, oh, I myself am putting my services online in 2004 and 5. I was in high school in 2004 and 5, graduating high
Okay.
school, and I'm like, I don't think anybody I know was offering like digital services, because that meant you could have
Yeah.
clients anywhere, right? You could have a client that was in Dubai or that was in California
Yep.
or whatever. So that's just
Yep.
very, very unique. What drew you towards like beauty and fashion? Is that just like, since you were a kid, that you were always just that way? You were thinking that's where it's at. That's where I want to be.
Yeah, I just, fashion in particular, I've always loved fashion. When I was little, I would often draw clothes and, I wanted to be a fashion designer. Beauty, I'm not a huge beauty like, I like beauty, of course. I love designing for beauty. But I
Yeah.
myself, like, I'm not really a makeup person or like I found my eyeliner. So, yeah.
My daughter
And
is
my
getting
lipstick.
into fashion right now, and it's very funny. She's 7, and she just started making her own clothes. And I tried to
Oh,
show her what a pattern was, to be like, this is what a pattern is. Like, you can like make things that fit you specifically if you make a pattern. And
yeah.
she's also at that age where she's so independent. She doesn't want to learn anything from me. So I'm just like, all right, cool. So I
Oh,
showed
it's
her a
starting
YouTube
already.
video. It's starting already. So it's I had to show her a YouTube video, and she learned about a pattern through a YouTube. I'm like, I could have helped you with this, but all right, maybe we're not gonna have that father daughter moment about me helping you with something like that. Um, Currently, you have a team. You guys are based in the GTA, or at least you are. I know your team could be
I
anywhere.
am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how it works with digital agencies, digital studios. So let's talk a little bit more about the products and services that you kind of are like. This is our staple of what we type of do. What's like the main thing that you guys do at Castlefield Designs?
So, okay. Well, first, I want to note that so I have a design assistant who started with me in February, and she is actually in Spain. She's Spanish. She lives on
Mm.
Lanzarote, which I may have mispronounced, so I'm very sorry. It's in the Canary Islands. So
Oh,
yeah. And again, with the
nice.
internet, it makes it possible. Clients everywhere. She's in Spain.
Yep.
It's only a 5-hour time difference, so it's easy to work with. Because I've worked with clients in China. And that's it work because I'm usually up late. It works well because before I go to bed, they're getting up. But if I went to bed at a normal time, like we would never,
Oh my
our
goodness.
emails would always have large
Yes.
time gaps between them. But yeah, so most of what we do. We're very focused on building and maintaining brands. So we do everything from brand strategy, just to start, to know. Usually people have an idea of who their brand is before they come to us, but if they don't, we'll do a brand strategy session, and then that leads into the brand identity design. And then if they already have their identity, which isn't most clients who come to me, but if they already have it, then we're using their brand elements to create additional designs that obviously fit with their brand.
Right.
So yeah, that's most of what we do, and then packaging as well. Those are kind of our main two. But packaging is an extension of branding anyway, so it all kind of
Yes.
fits in that bubble.
And like the way you guys put it all together, if you haven't seen the website, you got to go check out Castlefield Designs. The website really showcases the luxurious lifestyle. This is a very beautiful product, very nice product. So, which I think is like so undervalued, people that don't take good product photos and don't take good photography for their website. So it's like, I'm sure you get this. I don't know, but you're going to confirm or deny at this point right now. I'm sure people call you and message you, and they're like, I want it to be just like this that I saw on your website, because they saw something that was like so good and so inspiring that it's like, oh, she gets it. I just want her to do that for me. You know what I mean? Because when you
Yeah,
use good imagery, it kind of paints the picture for somebody else to see their story in that type of narrative.
exactly. And, just a tip for other designers if they aren't at, I don't want to say like my stage or level, but you know what I mean? Like if you're still
Yeah.
learning and putting things together, they're mock ups, most of them. It's like a lot of people. And the reason why I started doing mock-ups is because I would have some that were mock-ups, and then I would have, real photos from clients, and the quality wasn't always there, because you can get something
Exactly.
printed in the most beautiful way, but if you don't have a good photo of it, it doesn't look like anything. So that's why I started doing all mock-ups, even if I have, real product photos, it's still going to be a mock-up, at least as the main image, just so that everything's super consistent and high quality. And if you have a good printer, it's going to look like the mock-up when it's printed. So yeah, that's a tip
true
for
too.
new designers, right? Yeah. So it's not a
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah, and lots of new designers. A lot of new designers also, I think they might like underestimate how important it is to like show your work.
Yes.
I think I was late to the game. I'm like, hey, I'm doing all right with just like word of mouth and but then that there's no way for you to network in a meaningful way. In maybe as you get better clients if you're not showcasing how good you actually are. And design is such a subjective art form. So like you have to like prove yourself because there's so many people every year that are graduating that are really, really sharp. Yes. Like we have 2 designers on our team and they're so good. I'm just like, if you're not showcasing this to others, then there's no way you're going to stand out in a crowd. And it sounds like it's super basic, but you wouldn't believe how many people are like, oh yeah, I haven't updated my portfolio in like 6 months. I'm just like, how are you? Yep. How are you alive? How are you making money? This is like it's rent free. How are you doing this? I feel like the more I showcase my work on my website, the more I showcase my work online, the more people actually think about me online, about how they can see me and them working together in a partnership.
Yeah.
And like there's different stages, right? Like you mentioned early on, there's young designers and there's people that may be more intermediate and there's more people that are like senior designers who have been doing this for a long time. Maybe you've been building, branding since MySpace. You can be just like Sophie. Right. So let's start with the beginning. Let's start with like people who are like just starting out as designers. One of the great things you already just said, but let's go even a little bit deeper. Like how should a designer hone in like their skills? Is it just practice and practice and practice, or should they be attending seminars and all that type of stuff?
All of that is great. Practicing, definitely. When I was first, okay, let me rewind. So my undergrad degree is actually in German. I actually don't have a graphic design degree at all because my master's is technically, it's fashion. Not technically, it is a fashion master's. And yeah, I have a BA of German language and culture or something. So I didn't graduate with the design degree, which was something that for me was, I've never had imposter syndrome, even back when I probably should have had some imposter syndrome because my work was just not good. Like I said, don't look back at your early work. Although, to be fair to myself, there was a certain style in like the early 2000s, you know what I mean? So it wasn't all me being young. Like there were just some bad graphics back then.
Trends, yeah, it was a trend.
Anyway, where was I? Yes, so my degree. So the reason why I was going to do a double major. The reason I didn't finish with my graphic design degree was because I went to Germany for 6 months and it wasn't officially through Davis. And so that put me into like a 5th year. And then I just needed to get out of there. And so a lot of what I learned was great school, really great school. I went through some stuff at the time personally.
Yeah.
Really great school. So a lot of my skills I learned just by teaching myself. So whether that was through like computer arts magazine tutorials or tutorials like online, or sometimes I just see a design and think, oh, I want to make something like that. How do I do that? And so I definitely suggest, just practicing. And if there's something you want to do, learn how to do it. Follow people, especially now with social media. It's so easy to just like follow somebody who's doing something that you aspire to do, and reach out to people because you never know,
they might end up on your podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Or you might get a mentor, or you never know. Don't be afraid. I know that, when you're like in high school or college, you're young and it can be sort of unnerving to reach out to somebody, but dude, the worst they can say is no, or they cannot respond, and that's fine. There's no shame in
100%.
that.
And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's a cliche because it's true. Like
Right.
if you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to have those opportunities. And for you, like, was this more like freelance, or was this a conscious decision? Like, we're going to have a business? Because those are two different things.
Yes. Bart with the hard-hitting questions. Let's see. It was both. I don't know. I think sort of starting freelance. I had some in-house positions. They were okay. One of them was horrible, but I won't go into that in this public forum here. Okay. So my life wasn't a journey in a straight line career-wise. Some people,
Yes.
like a lot of my friends graduated from Davis with a design degree. And like one of my friends, Lindsay, she started at Pottery Barn designing for them and worked there for, I don't even know if she's still there, but it was like 7-8 years and she was still there, And so sometimes I kind of felt like my trajectory was so different and maybe I should have done something, I'm so behind in my life and what am I doing and blah, blah, blah. And I did try applying for those jobs, but because I didn't have the design degree, a lot of people I think wouldn't even look at my portfolio because they're like, oh, but
So
you didn't
true.
graduate with a degree, which is silly
Yes.
because, there are a lot of people who, like myself, are self-taught and they're very good.
I don't have a
and-
design degree.
Right? You don't necessarily need the talent. You don't need the paper necessarily,
Exactly.
because there are a lot of people who also graduated and they're not good. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah, it is what it is.
which is fine. They probably have something else that they're excellent at that I can't do. You know what I mean? We
Don't
all
try
have
to
our
save
have our
it.
thing. But
You're being very, very good.
I'm trying. Yeah. And I just realized, so I'm at my mom's house. I just realized that I sort of blend into her china closet here. So sorry. Just kind of fading it. But with the curtain
Oh,
open,
my
it
goodness.
was too sunny. So, maybe the sun's
Right,
a little
right,
better now.
right.
Nope. Okay. Never mind.
I don't know. I have the sun
gosh.
right in my face too. We have the same sun shining in both of our faces. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Are
The
you
sun.
like, now that it's like, it grows into like a business, you start doing things, you name it, you put some products together or at least some packages together, what you're going to be offering. How do you hone in? Because design is one of those things, or creative services are one of those things where it's like, it's sprawling. You can end up doing design for anything. So how do you kind of keep the reins and like, that's not for me, and this is where I want to kind of be?
So, good question. Okay, actually, let me really quick go back. Sorry, I go on tangents, so...
That's okay. This is a
bear with
long
me.
form podcast, so it's going to be fun.
Perfect. Okay, good. So this is like 8 hours, so I can just just reel me back in when I go wild here.
Right.
So your question about like, was it freelancing, or did I specifically want it to be a business? So at some point, after I finished my master's, I started working at a law firm, because I was working in gift registry at the Bay, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but the pay was not good, and the hours were kind of all over the place. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna work at this law firm, and the pay is steady and it's good, and the hours are like normal, 8 to 4, whatever. So I was there, and I had decided that I was happy just doing design as a hobby. And then about a year and a half in, I realized that is no longer true. And so that was when I started building Castlefield, and I had this 3 to 5 year plan, as soon as I'm making enough to replace my salary here, I'm out. And then I lost my job like a year later, and it was magical. It was so wonderful because sometimes you need that kick. Like, I might still be there. I hope not, but and it was a great job. I really enjoyed it, which is part of the problem. I was very comfortable, so. And it can take a lot of time when you're building a business to get it to the point where it does replace your corporate salary.
Yes. Big time.
So
I'm a big fan of Grant Cardone, or at least some of his stuff anyways. He talks about like that feeling of like, he's talked about how he was making $3,000 a month working his job at a corporation. It's like the first time I ever made $4,000 on my own, you kind of feel like that's significant. I've now broken otherwise a barrier that would have been put on me, right? So like they have valued my value to the company as $3,000 a month. And then he's like, I now broke through that. And now if I can do 4, why can't I do 10? If I can do 10, why can't I do 20? And like, it keeps growing and growing because now you kind of realize I'm in the driver's seat now. So I get to push as hard as I want. I get to be as intentional as I want. And I get to almost dictate my results based on the input, right? Like, that dictates how much you can actually make, how much freedom you can have in terms of where you live, how often you work, what clients you take, all that type of stuff comes into play when you become the owner of a business and you're in that driver's seat. Now, the hard part for you and I, for people who run creative agencies, is like you're still sometimes trading time for money. So there is also like this whole like, okay, so how do I move away from this if I want to live the lifestyle that I want to? Because it's one thing to learn how you can be self-sufficient, you can make money all the time, however you want to, whatever skills you have. You've done a good job marketing those skills. Are you in the process of doing anything like that where you're like, well, how do I mature this company into something that's a little bit more or bigger, in the sense that I'm not always trading time for money? Like one of those ways, I know you have employees, you have people that you work with who do a lot of the work as well. So you're not always trading. If like a design project takes 50 hours to take in total, you don't have to put those 50 hours in yourself. You can now afford to pay somebody to do something like that.
Exactly. Which is, if we talk about what success is and levels of success, that was a huge milestone for me, being able to hire her. Her name is Rocio, and she's amazing. Like literally every single day, I'm so grateful to have her. She's also just an amazing person. It's a luxury to be able to hire somebody and someone you like and you work well with. I have her email clients. I don't have to worry about, I'm not concerned. Like I know that they're in good hands, and she's really a client. Actually, the other day said that she's an extension of me, and that's how I feel too, which I thought was a compliment to myself because she's amazing. I guess I'm okay too. But yeah, so that's the main thing I would say. The employees building. I do want to build a bigger team. That would also mean that Rocio would move up in the company. I don't know exactly what that role would look like, but I do see her coming up another level, and then we'd have maybe a couple of junior designers as well, that she would maybe oversee a bit more directly, something like that. And your question about my style and what I do specifically, that wasn't really a plan. That was just sort of naturally and I do designs for all kinds of different brands. Like people don't know, I've done stuff for like pro sports, and I do stuff for some of this I post on Facebook, like law firms and accountants and all kinds of, it's not just the, frilly, pretty, beautiful stuff. But my signature style, I guess, is it just sort of naturally happened. And then I just started attracting clients who wanted more of that, a luxury look, whether that's minimalistic or if it's really ornate, whatever that is, but just like a high-end, clean, polished look.
It's very high key. Yeah, 100%.
Thank you. Yeah. So it wasn't a plan. It was just kind of like, oh, this kind of happened, and I love it. It wasn't something that because I know sometimes people sort of get pigeonholed. They did a design for one person, and then that someone saw that, and they're like, oh, great, I have something similar, and then all of a sudden you're doing designs for, I don't know, plumbers, but you really want to do designs for interior decorators or whatever.
100%.
You get kind of stuck.
Yeah, you're like, what do you? what did you do back then for like to market yourself versus like what you do now? Because I think there might be a difference because the world's different, but also like I'm just
Yeah.
interested to know like what do you do, like what were you doing like 15, 20 years ago versus like now?
Um, I wasn't doing much 15, 20 years ago as far as marketing. A lot of my freelance work was on campus. So it was
Mm.
actually, you know what? In a general sense, not much has changed. A lot of it is still very much my network and the people that I know. It's just that my network has changed. I mean, we're all
Yep.
17 however many years older, you know, and it's some different people as well. But yeah, it, like you were saying, word of mouth, that was big back
Yep.
then. And then of course my my MySpace, posting my designs on MySpace. Which started my international graphic design career, because I
Wow,
actually had a client from the
international.
Middle East as well who found me on MySpace, which was that was pretty cool.
That's
Um,
like that has to be some type of record. Like 2004 and 5, you got it. You had somebody in the Middle East. Like, how did they send you payment? PayPal?
PayPal. It's
Yeah,
always
that's only
PayPal.
that's
Yeah.
PayPal's only would have been the only thing around at that
Yeah.
time. There was
Yeah.
no Stripe or like e-transfer.
No. No. Yep. So,
Speaking of payment, you're always very open about like money and pricing and making sure that you're pricing accordingly to the stage and level that you're at, which is always really good when designers speak openly about this because sometimes you can be a younger designer and you not know that you're worth more, but you can
right.
start to see, oh, maybe I'm not doing a good job at respecting myself type of thing, right? So
Right.
it's like you do a good job of talking about like what what your value is, what your worth is. So I'd love to even on your website, which I thought was I don't know another designer that does it, where you put like, oh yeah, our branding starts at X. You know what I mean? Like it starts at 10 to 20,000. Excuse me, but that's something that many people don't put on their website. It's like you
Yeah.
want XYZ service, call me. I'll tell you. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to put a
Right.
price list as such at all. Even in my industry in web design and graphic design as well, we don't it's not on my site right now. I don't have the pricing of what our products are without you giving me your email. So I'd love to know your ideation behind that and how did you come about not just putting it on your website, but like being open about you're kind of like the breaker of change. Like I'm just gonna say the number and just be like, yeah, we're growing this way, or this is a good number, this is a bad number comparative to where I'm at in my business right now.
Right. Um, a lot of it is I've been doing this a while, and a lot of it came from frustration because I would just get so many inquiries
Hmm.
from people. I would always get inquiries from people who are like, I'm rebranding. It's going to be luxury. I want luxury. I want luxury. It's going to be luxury, luxury, luxury. And then I'm like, great. Well, here's the cost for all that luxury that you'd like, you know. And then it's like, oop, all of a sudden I never hear from them again. Which, of course, is an interesting thing
100%.
because it's like we could get in a whole discussion about people would walk into Chanel, for example, and not be like, what? How much? And that's luxury, or onto like a luxury car lot or whatever, but people don't value or don't understand like branding or like luxury branding or that branding
Yes.
in general, not even just high-end branding. But anyway, so yeah, so a lot of that, I had starting prices on my website years and years ago
Hmm.
when I was mostly doing wedding invitations. And then people would ask for a quote, and then I'd quote them something that was higher because they wanted extra things. And then they're like, oh, but the website
Yes.
says blah, blah, blah. It's like, but you wanted extra things, so that's why it's more. And then on the other
Yeah.
hand, I would get a lot of emails where they're like, how much is this? And I'm like, why do I have it on my website if I get so many emails from people asking how much something is? So for a while, I didn't
That's
have
true
any price
too.
on my website at all because I was like, nobody reads this stuff anyway. Um, and then at some point, I started charging for a consultation. So right now, I charge $75 US for a 15-minute consultation. And when you go to the Calendly, the first question says, if you, what does it say? Branding starts at, I mean, it's public knowledge, $10,000. Packaging does as
Yeah.
well. Other services start between like 1,000 and 2,000 or whatever. And then it asks, are you willing and able to invest that much at this time? Yes or no. And then people click yes. And then they, go through and book the call. But it's very clear, like, this how much, because again, I would get on the phone with people, go through a whole call with them. I'm one of those people, it's very hard for me to hang up, like it's hard for me to say goodbye. So it'd be very difficult for me to cut the call, not in a rude way, but, like cut the call short or keep it short. Right. Where sometimes I'd be talking to them for like 45 minutes or an hour. Then I'd be like, great, I'll send you the quote. And then I wouldn't hear back from them. And I'm like, oh, what a waste. So that's why the base price is on the website. I recently added that. And then that's why I charge the consultation, because if people don't want to pay the $75, then they don't or can't afford to pay thousands of dollars for whichever service it is. So it's really just a way of keeping... I'm a very sensitive person, so it bothers me to, I get a little, not upset, but a little bit like, oh man, I never heard back from, like, it doesn't bother me for days or weeks, but and especially when I was a little bit younger, it would sort of bother me like, oh man, I never heard back from that person. And as a creative,
you can't help but already start to think of, oh man, that could have been so cool. I already had this idea and we could have done X, Y, and Z and it would have been so nice. It would have been so great. It could have been so bad. It could have been great and now it sucks. And you know what I mean?
Right?
Like, it's like, it's so close and we missed it.
It's like already designed and you're like, man.
Yeah. And creatives, your brain just goes, man. So you hear someone's idea and you're like, it's as if it's your company too. Like, yeah, I love this. This is great. Right. Let's do it. And then to be ghosted, it sucks. I'm also a little bit torn with like, should I charge for my consultations? Now, we do a little bit of screening as well. Like when you book a call, it is free for 15 minutes, but we do have a company profile we ask for. How many people are on your team? Is this a startup? Like how much was your gross revenue for the last year? We asked just to make sure that we're in alignment. Because the reason why people like you and myself would ask money, and I think a lot of people don't know this, is just not just whether or not you can afford us, it's also whether or not you are capable of handling the process that we're going to be in. So there's a difference of let's say you're the leader of a startup, whether it's a CEO, whatever you guys call yourselves, CEO of a startup, and you have a very limited budget, right? Only limited, maybe $100,000 is all you got as seed investment. You're concerned about pennies and cents, about every allocated dollar. Whereas when you're like, our drop down for that question about what's your gross revenue starts at $150,000, and how many people are on your team starts at 0 all the way up to like 12, 15 plus. So the reason why I also ask that, not just whether you can afford it, it's also people that run teams and run larger budgets are not concerned about nickeling and diming. Executives, from what I understand and my dealings with them, are concerned about end results. Do I trust you? Will you do it? How much time will you save me? The price can be whatever. I don't care because I'm not going to have to worry about it. So I really feel like as designers, we have to protect ourselves as much as we protect the potential client, because it's not going to be a good experience. It's not going to be a good experience if they come on and then while you're trying to lock in the design and lock in the ideas for the process, they're still worried about, well, how come you said you were going to give me 3 patterns and I see 3 patterns here, but one of them looks similar to the other pattern, and I just think I should get a little discount for that. I'm just like, bro, why are you nickeling and diming me? Look at all this other stuff we just did for you that's going to help your business grow exponentially. And you don't want to be in a place as a creative when you are offering up proprietary information on a regular basis, your creative, thought process, for someone to just be reducing it down to how much money they spent. That's never a good feeling as a designer. So that's why you have people like myself and like Sophie who are like, hey, you know what? There is a price to being involved with us, and it's not cheap. If you want cheap work, you can get cheap work. There's nothing wrong with Fiverr if that's all you have. Right. But I tell people, don't feel ashamed if you have to save up to work with me, not as being like pretentious, but I'm saying you'll get much more if you save for something. That's just a law. right? If you want
Yeah.
a nice car and
Yeah.
you save and buy it, it's going to feel real good and it's going to
Right.
drive really nice. I'm the nice car. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm trying to get people to understand.
Yep.
Save up. We're going to be all right. And when you're ready, we can do that. And I think that that's really, really smart. Like when I saw that you put your pricing on there, I was like, huh, I can't believe she put her prices on there. And then when I saw on Facebook where you were like, I charge for a consultation, I'm like, this girl's crazy. And I stopped and think about it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, she's actually smart. It's actually, you're not just saving yourself, you're saving the client. You're saving the client
Yeah.
too, because then they're like, I don't have to go down the rabbit trail and then just
Right.
not hear from them anymore. It's really good.
Yep. Yep. It's good for everybody. And
It is good for
it
everybody.
it saves me so much stress. So much
Yeah.
stress. Because I haven't had too many rude clients, but I know that a lot of times people will get responses that are just rude, where it's like, you don't need to project. There's no shame in not being able to afford 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 50,000, whatever. There's no shame in that. But sometimes, and I'm sure you've had this too, people will say like, oh, how much? Or like, all I want is, they'll be like, oh, this one kills me. Every time someone's like, I just want blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, that means they don't value it if they just
don't
want
value it.
Or like, oh, I just want a simple logo, or like just a word, just text or whatever. It's like,
And they
you don't
only do it
understand-
with the creative people. It doesn't work any other place. You can't go to a car dealership and be like, but how much is it if I take out the seats?
Right.
Just give me 2 tires. Is that going to be cheaper? And
Yeah.
there's something to be said about brand or alignment within working together. You can be a great person or have a great product rather, but if you and I don't gel and vibe, it's never going to work no matter how much money you're paying me. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be harder. We're going to be fighting against that tension. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way, where it's like, ooh, the money's nice. And you didn't take into consideration that maybe the client and you don't want the same thing ultimately.
Yeah.
And I'm the means to an end. And he doesn't necessarily like my style. So it's going to be really hard. I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that, where it's like,
I have.
I got money, but it didn't necessarily feel good. It didn't
As
feel
they
like,
say, not all money is good money.
yes. Not all money is good money. Sometimes it's like, it's not worth the hassle. It's not worth, and it's no fault to, like, it's not like the bad person. It's just, they have different expectations than what I can provide, but they still came to me knowing that this is my wheelhouse, and then they want something X, Y, and Z, and they're very frustrated that it's not the way it is. That's where it's like, okay, this was never going to work. I can never be somebody else, and then that's where it gets a little bit tricky. But yeah, as somebody who's gone through the stages, and I would say now I'm a mature designer, I think I've seen a little bit of everything. We've talked a little bit about like people starting out. We've talked a little bit about like people who are more maybe intermediate, but let's talk a bit about more people that are senior in their position, designers who are like, I'm ready to make this into a full-fledged business. I already have clients. I understand what I'm doing. You have 2 people on your team right now. Is that correct? Is it 3 of you?
I have one. I have a VA as well, but I have the one designer.
You have a designer and you have a VA. There is a lot of like, I would say like, not stigma, but like people have preconceived ideas about what it's like to be a designer that kind of writes their own ticket, you know what I mean? Like, and what it takes to like be in a place where you can have a team supporting you. And at least, I don't know for you, but for me, it was like technically on paper, I shouldn't have hired a designer. But if you hire a good designer, the moment you hire a designer, they make room for themselves. And they make more business for you in the long run very quickly and very easily. And that helps us, have more growth. I believe everyone should be an entrepreneur. Like, everyone should have at least a side hustle, something that makes them happy, that gives them some type of joy. And having a business where I didn't have to spend 60, 70, 80 hours a week working on it and working in it, was super, super liberating. And it kind of cemented me as like, okay, I'm no longer a junior designer. I'm no longer just kind of doing this. This is for real. It's now just, it's a business now where we can make revenue and we can actually invest into things that help the company grow and move forward and all these different things.
Right.
So I'm gonna let you speak. I know I've been rambling forever. How did you get to that place where you were like, okay, I'm gonna take the plunge to kind of make this thing grow bigger than what it was before?
Specifically with hiring Rocio, I just got to the point where I was tired. I mean, I was working 16, 18 hours. I mean, usually on weekends too. I was tired. Like last fall was absolutely insane. Like it was so crazy and I just couldn't do it anymore. And so at some point I was like, financially I would never want to put an employee in a position where it's like, oops, never mind, I can't afford you. Bye. So that of course was a big thing. Too. Yeah, it's like, of course, I feel responsibility for her job. So I didn't want to commit to something where like, oh, this month is fantastic, but like next month, I don't know. So I just need to be at a place where it's like, even if next month isn't good, I still have enough money that I can pay her, So that's that was the big decision back in February, and hiring was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And then I found her, and again, that's a whole other story. But the stress it took off, just being able to rest and not feel bad, like. This is the purpose of having an employee. Like I can actually have some time for myself, or, there are days sometimes with, depending on my workload where like I don't work. I mean, I'm usually doing something design related. It usually ends up on Instagram or my portfolio, but I'm not doing like client work specifically. I'm doing something that's like relaxing. Not that I enjoy my client work very, very much because I have awesome clients. I'm very lucky. But yeah, it just opened things up where I can then spend more time. Really, I feel like the last couple months have been sort of like getting my rest in. I also had last year was very stressful with COVID, of course, 100%. And my dad passed away. What'd you say?
I said 100%. The last year is stressful with the whole COVID thing. And like you just said, you had a family member pass away. Your dad passed away. That's a lot to deal with as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no shortage of pressures around the world already. Plus, having that is a lot.
Yeah. And when just real quick, he was sick. So it also wasn't a sudden death. There was like years leading up to it, and then a few super stressful months. Then the last month of his life as he declined was, I don't know if you've ever been a caregiver, but it's like, it's traumatizing. It's really, watching someone decline. But so with Rocio, it's the work, there's more balance with work and life for me. But the last few months have been sort of resting and getting myself back to who I need to be health wise, just like, and then also sort of slowly focusing on growing the business as well. I have time to plan things now and say, like, okay, I need to do A, B, and C in order to grow, and being able, having her, which I'm obviously, as well, having her to lean on, and take care of things. It just, it's such a relief.
It's beautiful. And sometimes, we have like our sprint meetings, like when a new client comes on, and we'll talk about the project and what, some of the ideas that we have and how we're going to move forward. And when it's so liberating, like when they come back with stuff and it's like, it is good. It's like, wow. I remember the first time that ever happened where we were doing a work for a client in Liverpool in the UK. And I'd done all the work for some of the brand presentation templates. That's how we're going to present it. But the finalization of the logo and how it's all going to look and all the branding and all of our palettes and our mood boards and everything, lookbook, everything was all done through our designer. And when I saw it for the first time all put together, I was just like grinning from ear to ear. I'm just like, I didn't do all of this. I didn't do all of this. Yes. And it looks fantastic and it looks great because they innately have their own spin and flair to it. And it's just like, wow, this was such a relief as a business owner to be like, it's not all on me for once
Yeah,
somebody else gets it. So you gotta can lean on them. It's really, which is really, has it changed
exactly.
your design process? Has it changed how, like, I don't know what what your design process was before, but like having your designer now, does it change how you go from like getting information from the client and to that transformation? How do you guys do that?
It hasn't really changed anything. It's just that she's part of it, So the initial consultation, that'll be me. I fill her in on, we have this potential client, or, it's official, we're starting. I usually still put together the mood board and everything. And then
Mm.
I'll say, I'm going to start on it depends. If it's something, she's also great because she fills in spots that aren't my strengths. So she's super
Yeah.
good at editorial layouts, and she's an illustrator. I'm not an artist at all. Like, I don't illustrate, I don't draw, I don't paint. She does all of that. So I look at the project and I'll say, hey, can you design some icons, please? Or, we have a project coming up where it'll be a pattern design, and I do patterns, but I do like digital illustrations. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can manipulate things and that sort of thing. But she, blank canvas. It's all
Yeah.
her brushstrokes. Incredible.
Yeah.
She's incredible. But so yeah. So depending on what each of our strengths are, then I divide up the project that way.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
my
and
mom
she's
still thinks that I sometimes when I tell her, I'm a designer, she thinks, so since when do you draw? I'm like, it's not like that, mom. This is years when I was going to school and stuff. It's like it's not like that. And she was like, so now she thinks to this day, I think my mom still believes I do like IT, she's like, yeah, he works with computers. I'm like, no, I can't fix your router. Because she's like, can you come fix this? I'm like, I don't know anything about this. If you want me to build you a website, I am the guy you want to call. But she's like, well, how do
yeah.
you build a website? I'm like, I can't explain this to
Right.
you ever. There's not enough words or time where I
Oh
can
my god.
explain what I do for a living and why I don't go to a job. I used to work at a church before this, and which
Okay.
my mom was so ecstatic. I was doing marketing and media for a large church in Toronto. That was like the height of my life. And now that
Yeah.
I don't work there anymore, and now I do anything, she's like, "What do you even do?" I'm just like, "Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm a business owner." That's why I just tell her I'm a business owner. Don't stress out anymore.
Yeah.
It's
My
so
bills are
wild,
paid. Don't worry about it.
my bills are paid. It's okay. Everything is good. Sophie, I'm so excited that you were here today because we had a really, really good time. Before
It
we
was great.
go, I'm going to give you a chance to let people know where they can find you online.
Perfect. So, my studio website is castlefield.studio. My shop is shopcastlefield.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Castlefield Design, on Pinterest as well. And if you hear some yowling and shrieking, that's just my cat. My cats came with me, of course, to my mom's house, so I don't die alone at home. And they sometimes argue with my mom's cat, so I just see that there might be a chase
A
ensuing here.
scuffle.
So hopefully, yeah. Toulouse? No. Sorry about that. They couldn't wait
Stop
2 minutes
it.
until we're
Your
done.
cat's name is Toulouse.
Toulouse, and Nora is his sister.
Oh my goodness. From Aristocats.
Either Aristocats or the artist Toulouse-Lautrec. So
Okay,
one or
okay,
the
okay,
other.
okay. I'm like, I only know this because I have kids and we watch
Right.
the Aristocats. I'm the dad who's like, you have to watch the Disney movies in like in order. You can't start with like Frozen. You got to start
No,
with like, Peter Pan and like
of course.
Mowgli and Jungle Book and
The
Aristocats with
classics.
Toulouse. The
Yep.
classics.
Yes. Yeah. So, yep.
Yes.
Exactly. Very good. So yeah. So Castlefield Design is my handle on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest, and I'm on Behance as well, but it's just an extension of my portfolio on
Yeah.
Castlefield.studio. And yes, that's all my information.
Awesome, guys. Go follow and go check out Sophie on all these different platforms. Her work is really amazing. When you see the portfolio, if you want to get a good concept of what type of work she does a really good job with the luxury and branding. Guys, this has been the More Life podcast. If you really enjoyed this podcast, make sure to leave it a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. Peace out.